record. I'm sharing. Okay. So the question was, what will this produce on the right-hand side, if anything?
Enter an integer.
And what's going to happen after that text? Nothing, something, lots of things.
Imagine you were just get a blank input box.
Yeah, that's what the math input is doing. Will there be a
Mhm.
checkwork button at the end?
No,
Because,
it's not an answer or an award.
yeah, math input is just give me something. So if I type in 1, nothing happens. If I type in 2, nothing happens. Accessibility man is not happy because math input should have a short description or a label, which we'll talk about later today, but I'm going to skip over that part. Now, what I want to do is determine whether this number is even, odd, or no, positive, negative, or 0, and then share a sentence to the user and say the number you've entered is positive or negative or 0. So one way to do this very quickly is to use something called conditional content, where you have multiple cases within. So think of this as an if then else statement, if you've done anything with programming before. So the syntax is you say the first case is only entered if you satisfy some condition. So what condition do you think it needs to be in order for us to know whether the number that the user has entered is positive?
Reference user greater than 0.
And what should happen if this case is true? Or if the condition is satisfied within this case?
Nothing.
Well, we remember we wanted to tell the user something about the number they've entered.
So we
So
have to put text.
the number is positive.
Positive.
Okay.
And I don't want to make the whole thing again, so what would I need to do if I wanted negative? What would I need to change?
Less than 0.
Yeah. So instead of checking whether the number is greater than 0, we see if it's less than 0. And now you can say else. Well, we don't need a condition under else. 0. Now, why is this bad? Or what's the issue here?
If you don't have an input, it automatically goes to 0.
Yeah, so each case is only entered if this condition is satisfied. So is this number, which is nothing,
Mm.
greater than 0? No, it's not. Is this number, which is nothing, less than 0? No, it's not. And then you automatically default to whatever the else condition is. So could we say condition here as well? And now nothing shows up. So if the number is positive, well, right now the number is neither positive nor negative nor 0, so nothing shows up. If I enter 1, I get positive, and if I enter negative 1, I get negative, and if I enter 0, I get 0. How would a student break this and say, hey, your stuff doesn't work?
Just hit enter. Can they hit enter without entering anything?
Well, there's sure. I mean, clicking outside of it is equivalent to me committing that answer or that input
What
rather.
if you did negative negative 1? Oh,
You guys aren't as mean as my students. What do you think happens with this?
Mm.
What would you expect to happen if a student doesn't even enter a number and enters something entirely different?
like a point.
Sure. Just
Um,
something that's not a number, because a number can be positive, negative, or zero, but not x or 2 comma 3 that's neither positive, negative, or zero. It doesn't make sense to ask that question.
mhm.
So I won't take too much of the time. I'll say each of those three things that I want is a separate case. And then the else condition is if you enter anything that's not satisfying one of those things, try again. So if I try 1, great. Negative 1, fantastic. 0. What happened? Oh,
You
I
forgot.
changed this. So 0, hooray. DS, try again.
Do you have to have an else term within your conditional content?
It's entirely up to you. If you're expecting for the user to type in an integer, you're kind of trusting them to do that, right? If the rest of your activity depends on you receiving an integer, it might be a good idea to ensure that you're receiving an integer in the first place. Or, for instance, what happens if the user says, well, I don't know what an integer is. I think it's 1/2. Right?
Mm.
So you might be reinforcing bad ideas, even though you're asking for an integer, but you are doing math with 1/2. And it is true that 1/2 is a positive number, which is what you're checking for here. So the one last thing, second to last thing, this was something that was shared a while back at the in-person workshop. So I'm asking for an integer, and this is the message that shows up when the user hasn't entered anything. So if I type in 1, the graph of x to the 1 gets displayed. If I type in 2, the graph of x squared gets displayed. If I do negative 1, the graph of x to the negative 1 gets displayed. And how would you break this? Notice that I want an integer.
Well, if you put in 1/2, it would give you the square root function.
Grumpy Narwhal appears.
That's very nice.
Well, thank you. I'm asking you for an integer. Why would it give you the square root function? So these are things that you want to, again, start thinking about, not as a way of tricking the student, but if you're asking for an integer, you should not indirectly be telling students that 1/2 is an integer by making that thing happen. Does that kind of sort of make sense? And conditional content was what I used to create this thing that I shared at the start of the workshop. Is it in here? Yeah. So here I have a conditional content around the entire activity. If this choice is selected, then that condition will be satisfied. And when that condition is satisfied, instead of just showing positive, negative, or 0, or showing a graph, I'm showing all of these questions. So conditional content doesn't just, apply when you want to display a message. It's just, what do you want to show to the user? It could be a message in text, it could be a graph, it could be an entire part of an activity or an entire activity by itself. So that's one. And one other thing, this was something I think Jen brought up yesterday, and how you can have just blank statements like open middle problems and have users type in numbers and then do a validation. So the way that's happening here is you have to know something about what you're trying to achieve. So if you have, two fractions that you're adding and you want the answer to be 1, without repeating any of the digits, and the digits have to be between, say, they have to be single digits. What you can do is check to see, where's my check? So I will give you credit when the first number you have entered is not 0, and it's not -1, and it's not 1, because those three are restricted values. And the second number you've entered is not 0 or -1 or 1, or and. And then the third number is not 0, -1, or 1. And the number you have typed in is an integer. So the is integer is a Boolean that tells you whether the thing you've typed in is an integer or not. So you might be able to solve this equation with rationals or irrationals, but I don't want those. I want only integers. And then obviously the equation that you've created, when I evaluate that function or that equation at the solution that I want, I get 0, which means that that number is a solution to the equation that you're creating. So you can use this sort of structure, and then obviously I'll just show you one more. For the next one, I am saying that the number that I'm telling you needs to be a solution, in this case -7, satisfies this equation that you've created by saying, well, let me take that equation, turn it into a function, and evaluate it at my solution, -7. And each of these numbers is not 0, -1, or 1. And they're all integers. And none of these numbers are repeated, because you're not allowed to repeat any of the numbers you've used in the past. So these things start blowing up, and you can see at the end there's a lot of ands. But once you identify what restrictions are, it's actually quite simple. And as Aaron mentioned, we can just use the word and. And with ands, you don't need to use parentheses. When you have mixtures of ors and ands, that's when order of operations becomes relevant. Any questions on these things? I know I went kind of fast, but this was just to expose you to things that are additional types of things that are possible within Doenet.
Would you, so like line 161, you have P5A is not 0, P5A is not 1. Could you instead make that P5A is not 0, -1, or 1? I guess use or instead.
Dwayne?
You could say P5A is not is let's say you could say P5A is equal to 0, P5A is equal, or P5A is equal to -1, or P5A is equal to 1. Put parentheses around that and put a not in front of it.
Yeah, but I think
That's
if I'm understanding Hayden's
But
point
you
correctly,
you can't do the shortcut. You can't say P5A is not equal to 0 or 1 or whatever. The ors currently only separate logical conditions, not just the value.
one other
Okay.
thing you can do if you wanted two conditions instead of one is say P5A is less than -1 and P5A is greater than 1. And then you're checking for integers. Virginia?
Yeah. So personally, this is just, I know I'm giving you several solutions already, but I think when you have really long Booleans like this, especially if they're like growing and growing and like building on each other, I like to just define a separate Boolean that has my compound in it. And then you may get to just reference that Boolean. That way you can have more complicated, you can mix the ands and the ors because you're just checking to make sure that all the Booleans you reference are true. So then once you chain them together, they'll get more condensed than like the 4-line statements.
This was
Okay,
a
so
straight
you-
copy paste job. This was not
Yep.
me being trying to be, maintaining good authorship practices. This was just, hey, I need to do the same thing for the next block, but just add an extra layer of comparisons. So it was a quick and dirty job. But Virginia's is probably better for long-term maintenance.
Yeah, so you can do something like P5A and closes the entire statement of not equal to 0 and not equal to -1 and 1. Okay, that would make it a little easier.
Which is to say, all of this would just live in a different Boolean universe. And then you're just checking. So
But it becomes easier to read.
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's also, you can have element of or is element of, I can't remember it, where you can check is something an element of a list. I'm not going to rewind the live codex, I can't remember, but there is a way of just saying it's not an element of, and then you have one, negative one, zero, or all the other P's. So you can shorten it that way as well.
You have multiple ways home. You just have to find the one that you like or creatively makes you smile. This was
And
just
it,
done in such a brutish manner that it made me smile. Like, yeah, Virginia's gonna hate this, and that's probably why I left it there. Yeah. All right, over to either Dwayne or Virginia. I'm not sure who.
I think Virginia has a task.
Alrighty, why can't I?
Yes.
There we go.
Hold on a second. Let me just find. I can describe it to you guys. So basically, we're gonna create a fresh document today, and we're gonna have several tasks that we're just kind of gonna build as we go. We're gonna learn a lot of things about um, cool new tags like this conditional content and accessibility. So I would like everyone to start a fresh Doenet ML document, and I will see where do I have. I'll type these instructions in the chat. The first step is to create a graph with a circle of radius 5. Um, what? Why does it say sign in again? It's not Zoom, that's my. There we go. You're gonna create this circle and then you're going to make a point. I always call points that I'm like having the students do something meaningful with. I call them drag points because it's easy for you to remember. That's the user's point. So create some kind of draggable point that will be on the circumference and that they can drag it around. And then do we have any experience with style numbers previously in this workshop? Have you guys used style numbers at all? Okay. So I would like style numbers that change. So this is kind of far out there, but see if you can find a way to define a style number that changes based on some condition. I was thinking as it goes around the circle. So go ahead, and lots of moving parts there, but if you can do it in a couple lines of code. So you want to try and see if you can use a conditional content to change that style number we have 1 through 6.
And did we teach you about the constraints to tag?
Oh,
Because
that's
you
a
want to be able to constrain it to a circle, so you have to use constraints to or constrain to, I think.
Yeah.
We've used
I think
it
that
for
came up
grid.
did we talk about that?
Yeah, we used it for the grid at one point, but
Okay,
that's it.
yeah. So do
All right.
constrain to and then put the circle inside there and that will or reference to the circle in there.
hmm.
I would love to have someone share their screen just so I can look at something. One of the participants, I mean, not Dwayne or Virginia. Anyone else, and this might just be me, but anyone else feel feelings of calm when they look at the Doenet website? Or is it just me being weird?
That is how I feel, especially if I'm not doing conversions and I'm just making something. It's blank. It's the blank donut screen that I love.
And nothing's yelling at you?
And I copy paste something in with 100 broken inaccessible inputs. That's calming.
It's pure possibility. Okay, I'll shut up.
So go ahead, Hayden, and try the constrain two one, and then inside its child, you're just going to give it a child which references the circle. So you do need to name the circle. Woohoo! All right. Well, this Hayden got very far. So why don't I go ahead and show how I would make that style number change as you go around. So
Is everyone there with Hayden, though, before we move on?
I
Or
could
do
start from scratch too. Yeah, let me go ahead and I'll share my screen and I'll give sort of like the us basically get us here for the what Hayden is currently building and just kind of describe what I'm doing as I go for everyone else.
Should I keep my screen shared?
I think you are far along, so I'll start everybody off from
Multiple people can share their screens.
what? Okay.
Yes. And then
Can
if
I
someone wants
stop
to keep
sharing?
watching Hayden stuff, they can.
All right, never mind. I'm gonna keep it open.
Yeah, there you go. I have to request. I don't know who that went
Allow.
to.
And
I
now
guess
you
I
should be
should.
able to share your screen as well.
Okay. All right, so can people see?
Not
Yes?
yet.
No?
Hold on, I can't see yours. I still just see Hayden's.
All right, here we go. I need to click the button again.
Now,
All right.
on Zoom, at the
There you
top,
go.
you should see different tabs, and you can switch back and forth between Hayden's screen and Virginia's if you wish to. If you can't, then we might need to get Hayden to stop sharing. But
No offense, Hayden. I'm gonna watch Virginia for right now.
I'm doing the same thing.
All right, so we are gonna start with um, just creating our graph, our point. I'm gonna name this my drag point, EP. And I'm going to give it a style number. And I know that I want this style number to change as the user drags it around the circle. So I'm just going to give it I'm going to call it N. And then I know I want a circle of radius 5. So I'm going to start it off at 5, comma 0. But I also want it constrained to the circle. So the component to use there is constrained to. You just make constrained to a child of your point. And then you reference something. So I haven't even created the circle yet, but I'm going to call it circle because I'm boring. And then that should create a point that starts at 5, 0, but still draggable, and I can drag it around the circle. So now I'll make that circle and give this. Actually, I don't think I need that. Circle. Okay. And then
Can I stop you right here? Can you explain what you just did? Because I don't think we talked about self-closing tags.
oh, okay, yeah. So I don't have everything that I need to create my circle. I'm just gonna click update so you can see that it's there. Everything that I need to build this, I might want to change the fact that I can move it around, is already included. So I don't have a child to add any more information to this. So since I don't have a child, I can just kind of skip this, this kind of thing. If nothing is going inside here, you can kind of shorten it, just do that. And it just makes it a little shorter. But I do want to fix this because I want to fix the location so that I can't drag it around. Okay, so we got this far here. Now we want to define this N somewhere. And notice it's nice. This is one of the best features ever, especially if you ever use any LLM assistance to create code. Like it sometimes hallucinates references. So you could say, nope, this is never defined. So this is where I'm actually going to use the conditional content because I want a number that goes from 1 to 6. And so I want n to change based on conditions. So I'm gonna start by defining my number. And I'm gonna give it its name. And then one cool thing about conditional content is if you have like a big chunk of something that's going to either show or hide based on a condition, then you can just kind of like make everything inside your conditional content. But if you have an object whose specific properties are going to change based on a condition, you can actually define the object, and then everything that you would use to describe what happens with it goes inside the conditional content inside it. So this is like a nested conditional content. So that whatever this number is going to be, it's only going to, define if that condition is satisfied. So I can have a case for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'll just start with like maybe 2 or 3. Yeah, let's do that. So my first case is going to be condition equals. And now here I wanted to kind of have it be based on the angle. So this is where I'm lazy and I use hacks like this. So I like to use components to kind of like get at information based on their properties. So I don't really need an angle in here, but I'm going to define one and then use the properties of that angle to make my case. So is this going to take too long? Do I have time? Another 2 minutes, maybe? Timekeeper?
Who's the timekeeper?
Sure.
All right. Don't let me go too much longer than like 2 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to go from actually 5, 0 from this point out here through the center, the origin, and then through my point, and that'll define the angle. And then I could just use the radians value of that angle to break up my cases. So 5, 0, and then my drag point. Don't worry about this. This is just a weird property of the angle. Okay, so now I have this angle, and I really just use this behind the scenes to get where's my point. So it's going to be angle dot radians greater than 0, and we'll just say less than pi over 2. Okay, and then we'll say that if it's in that first quadrant, we'll just make it red. So that means we want a style number of 2. It'll turn into a little red square. So I'm gonna do one more, and then we'll move on. So if I'm greater than pi over 2 and less than pi, less than or equal to pi, we'll go to 3. So we'll see what color that makes it. So basically what I did here is I've defined this number, and the value of the number is going to change based on where, what this angle is. So go ahead and click updates. And I'm in red zone here. And then I'm going to switch over to this should be.
You have the wrong inequality, and it should be greater than pi over 2.
Oh, thank you. Okay, there we go. It's like, I know. All right. So then it turns, this is style number 3, and it changes the midpoint to an orange triangle from here to here. So that you could imagine you could do any kind of breaking of the circle any way you want. Again, you didn't really have to do this. I didn't have to do this. I just did it because I'm lazy, but there's lots of other ways to kind of like get that information out. So, okay. Now, who is next?
Well, any questions or anything?
Yeah.
Can I just see the screen one more time?
Yeah, of
Go
course.
back to what you had, please. Thank you.
Sure. Here we go. So let me
I
make
just
this.
want to see the top where where the conditions were.
Yeah,
Or
okay. This
okay.
this is where we were. So I
Yeah,
have
that's what I wanted to see.
So the kind of nice thing is nesting a conditional content inside a component can be really powerful because then you use the same reference name, but its value changes. So it's really handy.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm looking at the outlines. Is Anurag show and tell something? Do you have another component you're doing, going to do, Anurag, or is it me next?
I think I did all the component show and tells together.
Okay, all right. I am going to let's see, share my screen, and then I'm going to try to remember where I put these documents. Hold on, I got to find them. My activities, workshops, demonstration of, oh, here we go, animation examples. So I'm going to paste this. So I'm just going to do some show and tell, but I will give you the link so you can look at it. So I'm not going to do this. So the goal here is just to show you a couple more things just for fun, but not take a ton of time on it. So we're going to spend some more time on accessibility. So I just wanted to show you how to do an animation. And here is an example of, I'm taking this number here and I'm just animating it. I'm making it go from, in this case, where is it? From 1 to 15. So I'll just walk you through what's in this document rather than building it. But then you can look at it your own time later. But basically, what you do to animate something is you just create a number. So here I just made a number. And if I got rid of all this other stuff, it'd be boring. It just has the number 1. All right, so I just created a number. Its value is 1. Very exciting. Then what I do is I add this tag here, animate from sequence. Nothing shows up. It doesn't show anything, but I say, okay, I'm going to take the component n right here, and I'm going to say, can you please go from 1 to 15 with a step of 0.1 and change every 100 milliseconds. So change 1/10 of a second. And so when I do this, every 10th of a second, it goes from 1 to 2 to 3, 1.1 exactly, etc. That makes sense? Any question? I mean, there's a lot to just take in, but does it, you get the rough idea? Maybe we can look at this later and parse it. Anything that's confusing?
Makes
It
sense.
always makes sense when I see it, and then when I go to create it, it
Right.
becomes that's the challenging
Right,
part for me.
exactly, right.
Yeah.
And if we had more time, we would have you actually work on doing this. So this is a more of a like, I'm a good lecturer. I'm confused. If you're a good lecturer, you confuse the students think they understand it, right? Until they try to do it. So
Could
hopefully,
I make a very timely plug for authoring pods here?
sure.
Or are we dedicating some time at the end? I know I wasn't at the meeting early enough.
I think we should talk about it at some point whenever you think it would fit.
Well, I'd hate for people to leave. Is there anyone who's not sticking around until, well, towards the end of the meeting?
I'm always here till 4:15 because you guys always come up with the best things in the last 15 minutes of after.
Okay, let me pull up the links. Maybe at some point of time, right up when we come back after our break at 2:15, 2:20, we'll introduce it then in case we lose anyone towards the end.
Okay, that makes sense. Now I'm going to introduce you to one more concept. I'm just throwing the making drink from a fire hose. We haven't talked at all about these kind of buttons, so I'm not going to worry about it too much, but there's something called call action. And I can tell the action, I can tell my animation to either stop or it's called toggle animation. When I call this action, I send this thing and say, can you please, if you're started, can you stop? If you're stopped, can you start? And so when I do this, I click it. Right now it's moving. I click it and it makes it stop because I said I told it, please toggle the animation. And then I push it again and it toggles it. So you can create buttons like this to turn the animation on and off.
Hmm.
So I'm basically just trying to give you the idea. Here's some things you can do in Doenet rather than like uh, spend a lot of time figuring all this stuff out. But hopefully, when you look at this, you'll remember. Of course, you can go to call action and learn about call action and things like that. So that's kind of boring, though. I just want to show something, give you a little more idea of how you might want to use the animation or how you can use the animation. So this next one, let's just look at the graph. It should be similar to what we did. Just focus here on lines 46 through 50. Can you tell me, can you describe what this graph is doing? By just looking at these lines.
It looks like you have a graph of the sine function and then a point constricted or constrained to that function.
Right. So here's my point. I made it style number 2, so it's red. If I try to drag it around, it's constrained to the function. That's kind of what we did with the circle. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to animate the x-coordinate. So I can make it, so you can move by yourself, but let's just make it animate. So I created above it, I said, I'm going to animate the point I called P. I said, I want to animate the x coordinate of P. Remember how you can do P dot $P dot X to get the x coordinate? I'm going to make it go from -10 to 10. And I guess going by half numbers. And then make it oscillate back. And so this one just increased. I'm going to make it oscillate. So when I hit start, it's going to go up to 10, turn around and go back. So there we go. There's our fun little animation. We're making that point going back and forth. And then I thought I'd do something. We just did conditional content. Notice that this button now says, here it says start, stop. Now it says stop. And now it turns to say start. So I basically made this little conditional content to say if it's on, say stop, else say start. What is this thing? What if a point wants to move to a short function? What's that mean? I see a comment in the chat.
Okay, it's just wordplay. Your label says, or your short description says it's moving a
Oh, a long. Moving
so it's like
along.
pushing it along.
Got it. There we go. Moving along a function there. All right, so that was just for fun. I'm going to show you one more for fun page unless there's something that you understood well enough to ask a question about.
Dwayne, can you show one more fun thing so I don't have to share my screen?
Okay.
I shared the link in the chat.
Thank you.
Okay, copy this. What is it? Hope I can understand it.
Just ignore the link and the thing on top. So scroll down. You'll see when to stop.
Ah, right. I remember this. Are you going to explain it? Or is
This was a follow-up to an activity that we started the course with using The Last of Us, and there were these clicker zombie things that I wanted to talk about multiplication of polynomials. So there's this compound, and these clickers are roaming around within the compound, And yeah, you can say that there are clickers inside, but students forget, at least for a moment, that they're doing math when they actually see clickers moving around. Um, so they had to find the perimeter because Joel and Ellie start on the top left corner and they walk all the way around the perimeter of the compound, but they don't know that they're finding the perimeter. To say, they need to find a safe way in or whatever, or they're scoping out the place, and then how big is the compound or how much room do the clickers have to roam around in. And then once they find a safe way in, there's a quarantine zone in the middle of a compound. And for whatever reason, you suspend disbelief and you say you have to walk around the perimeter of the quarantine zone as well when the clickers aren't looking to find a safe way in. And then you have to determine how much room the clickers really have to walk around within the compound, but outside the quarantine zone since they can't get in. So the day prior to talking about multiplication of polynomials, they would have talked about addition and subtraction of polynomials. So this is just spiraling things in without telling them that that's what they need to do intentionally. And Virginia and Dwayne helped the clickers move around. I couldn't tell you how to do it.
But they could now, everyone knows what component you used.
Yeah, you use animate from sequence. Or you asked Virginia and Dwayne.
Okay. I'm going to go back and show you one more. I think it's this one. One more advanced component, because this is our advanced component rapid tour. Let's say I wanted to show the multiples of pi. So I wanted to show pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, 5 pi, 6 pi. Well, one way I could do that is to use something called a repeat for sequence. And I say, okay, given the numbers 1 through 6, can you just show me that number times pi? And so what this does is it just repeats these things over and over again. First time through, v is 1. So I put this without the simplify. It said 1 pi. I thought it was ugly, so I'm going to do it without the simplify first. So it gives me 1 pi, and then the next step in the sequence is 2, so it gives me 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, 5 pi, 6 pi. And what I had to do is I had to give it the name of that sort of temporary variable. I call it value name. So this v here, okay, I got a little bug in here. It gives me a warning email. It shouldn't. So that's actually wrong, a bug in Doenet. Here's the referent right here. So $V references this number that changes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so this can be useful for building sequences of things, but it's definitely a more advanced kind of construction. If you name it, so I gave it the name R, I can then reference and just say, remember this index notation? We did that before. I can say, what's the fifth element of the sequence? And so indeed, the fifth multiple of pi is 5 pi. And I like to simplify because I don't like where it says 1 pi. I like to get rid of that 1, so I hit simplify. And now it just says pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, 5 pi, 6 pi. Then I'm going to show you one more advanced solution, but I'm actually not going to go through all this Doenet. I'm not going to take the time. But I just want to show you like the kinds of things you can do. You can use this repeat from sequence to this 2 here is 6. Well, I could make the 2 be a reference. And so I could ask the students, I could say, okay, I don't want to give away how many solutions there are to this equation. And if they put in a 1, then I have a repeat for sequence. I just show 1 input. If they give them 2, they get 2, 3, right? So they can select how many solutions there are, and that way you don't give away, saying, okay, here's answer block 1, here's answer block 2. And then inside my repeat for sequence, I have X equals, and then I have a math input. And then I can check the work. Solutions are 2, -5. Well, it gave me 50% correct because I said my answer 2, 5, and then whatever, some other things that aren't correct. If I go down to 3, now it says I'm 63, 2/3 because 2 of the 3 answers are correct. And then I go down to here, and now I'll finally get it correct. I don't want to go through all this stuff I got just um so we have time to talk about accessibility, but I just wanted to tease you about some of the kinds of things you could do as you can create these sort of dynamic number of answers. And this one actually is in the scratch pad, by the way. It's like answer checking examples, math answering examples.
I really like the dynamic number of answers. That's going to be really useful. And also I can then make a better argument. I have a few faculty who hate online homework systems because they show, they sometimes have solutions to polynomials as x equals 2 comma 5 or -5 in this case, instead of saying or in between x equals 2 or x equals -5. And this would be an easy way to add that in.
Yeah, we have to think about how to get the word or in there. I have to think about it. But right now it's a comma.
Yeah.
We'll have to think about or. That's interesting. You'll have to look up one other component called collect that I'm not going to really talk about, but it's the thing that like gathered all the answers from inside here. But,
Uh-huh.
I wasn't going to actually spend time on that just to give us more time for accessibility.
But oh, that's actually well, this would still be, I think, in their mind, a better way to list the solutions.
Oh,
So
with a comma here.
yeah, and with the x equals for both of them, and yeah.
Yeah, we can definitely do a or there. We'd have to put a conditional content and say an or, only show the or if you're not at the last number.
Okay.
So we could definitely do it'd be a little uglier though.
Yeah.
But I'll put in here like a conditional content um, case condition equals I less than n or. And there's still going to be a comma in there. Oh, why did that not work? Solutions are, okay. That's interesting. Do I have to put text on it? Oh, I see. My mistake. I forgot a dollar sign in front of the N, but okay, let's get rid of the text. I need a dollar sign N. There we go. And now I'll get an or in there. Of course, I got a comma in there too, and there's some tag to get rid of the comma. I forget what it is.
Great.
As list equals false. Now, okay, I need a space or space. There. Now I got an or. And then now, of course, it says or, and you'll need a more complicated conditional content if you want a comma in one case and an or, however grammar you want. But you could do that if you wanted to have ors in there. I guess today's a conditional content day, so we can do those.
All right, we have another task.
Could I do a very impromptu show and tell? That's not going to take very long.
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to share something that's 13 lines. And I made it 13 lines, but it would have been a lot shorter. So this was something Jen shared yesterday.
Oh.
It's really quite simple in Doenet. Using the digits 1 through 9, place them without repeating them in these 6 boxes to create 3 fractions that add to 1. And if you were doing this on paper, you would have to sit there and grade them manually or trust that students actually have found a solution, which does not work in my context. So the actual Doenet ML is just this. This is just fluff and giving people credit for work that they've done. I've created a math input, and you'll notice that these are some skeletal gray boxes. You don't even need them. In fact, this would work even without this guy. So you would just type in the numbers here that are solutions. If I just do 1 divided by 1 plus 1 divided by 2 plus 1 divided by 4, obviously that doesn't equal 1, and it would be marked incorrect. But if I did 2/8 plus, is it 2/8 or 1/4 and 3/6? And that gets graded correctly. Because all you're saying is, hey, whatever user you're typing in here, does it equal 1? Is that what you were hoping to accomplish, Jen?
Yeah, except for each input, we also need to check whether they use the numbers.
Yes. Okay. Well, then
But
that
but
would just
that's
be it's maybe that's homework for you.
yeah, exactly. But
But
this
that
is
would
very
just be
nice. That's
this
beautiful. That's
and
much cleaner too.
yeah. So you
I
just
ended up
have a
like,
bunch of add conditions or and conditions. All right, that was it. That was my quick show and tell.
Cool. I think we need a fraction math input widget, but I was just talking about that the other day. That would make things like that a lot more straightforward. So the task is, so you guys previously started a graph with a circle and a point, a drag point. And it changes color. And now what I want to do is use the repeat for sequence component that Dwayne just shared, the example for, and we want to try and just put that component inside your graph. And your goal is to graph 6 points that are equally spaced around the circumference using that repeat for sequence. So take 5 minutes, see if you can get 6 points. So you only need 1 point component as the child of your repeat for sequence. And somehow you're going to have those coordinates shift so that it maps out the points. How are we doing on time here?
Well, we're an hour into it.
Oh, I meant for our 5 minutes of our task. I don't know if my timekeeper was taking time.
I don't know who's the timekeeper.
I mean, you didn't say exactly 5 minutes. I assume there's a
You guys,
fudge factor available. If people are working, if folks are stuck, it might be helpful to start sharing some hints.
are you guys ready for me to share like a solution to this task? Or do you want to keep working for a minute or two longer?
Maybe one more minute.
Okay. Okay, does anybody want to share their solution, or do you guys want me to show you how I did it? Okay, I will go ahead and show one way. Of course, there's always more than one way to skin a cat. So I have, this was the one I started just earlier. And what you can do is if you have graphical elements, like for example, you want to create an array of shapes or something, anytime you're doing multiple graphical objects, you can just use a repeat for sequence inside your graph. I'm going to name it points. Okay, so I want to reference any of these values later. And I know I want to create a point. And let's see, I'm going to give it a style number of 5. And I'm also going to change my circle to 5. Because that's like it's a nice black, simple, kind of clean thing. The line is thinner. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And then I want it to be mapped around the circle. So I'm going to give it 5 cosine of, and here's where how I'm going to set up my repeats kind of come into play. So I need something that's going to increment the angle. I'm going to use V for the value. And then I'm just going to make pi over 3. And 5 sine pi over 3. Okay, so my child is going to be this point. I need one more parentheses. And then this V value is what's going to change. So I need to tell the repeat for sequence, this is the thing that's like stepping through the sequence. So it needs to null. Value name is V. And then I need to start it off at like positive X and go around. So I'll go from 0. Yeah, that should work. All right, so let's see what happens. Yeah. So again, there are many ways you could do this. But this is just like a quick and easy way to get multiple objects in play. Any questions on this syntax of this component that I just set up? Kind of makes sense. Okay. All right. So next, I think we're going to talk about accessibility. And then ultimately, we'll come back and sort of make this graph more accessible and change some visual features of this, because right now I kind of lost my drag point. I think it's here, buried under this other point, but it's gone right now. So we'll figure out how to fix that in a little bit as well.
Great, you guys, should we take a break? And come back and start accessibility at like 20 after the hour? 6-minute break? Okay. We'll see you in 20 minutes after whatever hour you're in. But looking at this chat, seems like we're going to need a fraction widget.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. This is unpleasant, to say the least. I was
I
looking
was
at
wondering how you were going to accomplish this, verifying opposite parts of the fraction. I'm
it
like,
was to extract the operator and then determine what comes to the left of it and what comes to the right of it.
that'd be a nightmare.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now, and that's what you made me do in the past when I was working on the adding of fractions activity a while back. And that's specifically why I'm still procrastinating on doing anything with rational expressions and rational equations for this exact reason. Now I remember why I kind of just forgot about this. Yes,
Well,
can we please have fractions that basically does what I'm doing manually right now with extract operator?
like a widget where it show like the thing that Jen showed at the beginning, the example where you have the square and then a line and a square underneath it, where both those squares are math inputs.
Yes. Or you have a math input type of equals fraction
Right, right. I
where it
mean, what it would look
automatically extracts. Yeah,
like you have a matrix input, and a matrix input has all these little squares in a row.
that would be
Mhm.
better.
It's basically like this matrix input, but I mean, you put it as in like fraction input or something, but it will show two boxes underneath each other.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That I think that also came up from Eric the other day, I think. Somebody else. So,
Okay.
what is next?
Aiden?
I was wondering if I could get help on a particular problem I've been having with the conditional.
Okay.
Because I'm not seeing anything wrong with my code, but it's not working,
Okay.
which means there is something wrong with my code. Um, so this is the circle problem that we had, and changing the style of the point as it goes along the circle, and the conditions I wanted to put instead was based on the quadrant.
Mhm.
So just to kind of explain the code, here I define my number style. I don't think there's anything wrong there. And then I have my conditional content here.
Yeah, so the confusion is that conditional content is not like this isn't it doesn't give you like statements. Like we have no this line 7, we have no concept of assigning a variable like the style equals 2. That's not a Doenet construction. We don't have an assignment operator like that.
Okay.
So what you would do is just instead just put the number 2 there in number 3 and then make the whole thing be your st it's
Oh,
yeah,
and that would be style.
and that whole thing becomes
Oh,
style. Yeah, we don't have there's no concept of variables that you can change in that way. Yeah, exactly.
okay, that makes more
Well,
sense.
actually, don't before you delete that, you actually had it set up correctly because it's the number that you're naming. And that since your conditional content's nested in there, it's basically going to go through and check to see which condition is met. And then the only thing that gets like stored inside your style, your number style, is whatever gets yeah, whatever checks out for the cases.
Well, now you have two things named style.
So
So
just
I'll
delete
go,
the name.
yeah, or comment on that for now. I'm curious if that works without a number, or do we actually need a number? Oh,
Uh,
I mean your else,
Oh,
just
reference
do
down
one.
here.
Yeah, just do number one.
hmm.
I'm curious whether we need a number like you're suggesting, or if that works. Is it because there's no number, or where's your point?
My point's here. It's changing the
Okay,
style. Now it's just not changing the point,
yeah, where's the
which
point defined?
did I
Well,
mess with that?
you have to
I
do
might
it.
have.
Yeah, you have it hard coded as 3, I think. You have to keep going down on line 20 something or
Oh yeah, okay, okay. Yeah. All right. I think this is gonna be the cure. Sweet. Yep. Perfect.
Oh, that's even simpler. Yep.
yeah, I figured that just the string in there would work, but I wasn't sure.
Cool.
All right, thank you.
And then before we move on to something, Anurag, do you want to give a plug for AuthorPods?
Yes, I was modifying things, but let me talk about this now. So hopefully you're now well versed in Doenet, and you will all be furiously banging out activities at every waking moment, and even when you're sleeping, you'll be thinking about Doenet. And we would like to capture some of that energy and bottle it. Uh, so we're thinking about this idea of, well, two things. Proofing rooms are one. So if you benefit from just having a meeting on your calendar where you say, this is dedicated time to where I'm just going to sit and work on Doenet activities, you can join a proofing room. Participants are encouraged to work in silence, although if you want to talk to someone who's also working on the same thing or you want feedback, briefly you're encouraged to go into a breakout session. But the purpose of the proofing room or a silent working group will be mostly accountability. There's no agenda. You're not coming there to present something. You're not going there to do anything other than just showing up and making progress. And one might benefit from just having this on their calendars. At some point of time, Dwayne will send this thing out, but there are 3 proofing rooms that are set up already. 8 a.m. on Mondays, 4 p.m. on Wednesdays, 11 a.m. on Fridays. These are just seed proofing rooms or starter proofing rooms, if you will. If no one wants to show up at 8 o'clock, we might change it to 3 p.m. on Mondays, for instance, if there's more interest in doing them then. So that's one type of group that you can get involved with, where there's no expectations really other than just show up and do your work. The other is a test kitchen where things will happen and you will talk about them and pots and pans will be banged about. The idea behind a test kitchen is you have an activity, you would like feedback from people that are working on similar things, maybe not exactly the same or maybe the same exact course content. But the idea is it's groups of, I think I'm going to say 3 firmly. 4 if you just talk really fast, but 3 is probably best. You bring in an activity to share, you ask each other for feedback. The focus of the conversation is primarily pedagogy as opposed to, hey, this one thing in Doenet doesn't work. I think those questions are probably best set aside for either the community discussions where you can get help, or you can join us on Tuesdays from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern for office hours, where some subset of Dwayne, Virginia, and I will be there to maybe help you out. And we'll be there to answer questions. Now, that being said, there's a soft expectation that if you're a member of the test kitchen, you are cooking something up. You're not just there to create background noise. That being said, if you don't have something to share or you experience writer's block or you just had a busier week than usual, that's okay. And if either the group finishes earlier than expected or multiple people don't have anything to share, then the test kitchen just runs as a proofing room where people just silently work. My test kitchen ran this morning. I'm trying to get used to calling it that, not something else. So we met at 10 and interesting things happened, and we recognized the need for a lot more structure to make sure one person wasn't taking up the majority of the hour and then other people didn't have an opportunity to share. So I'll discuss those things and how to share more directed feedback for ground rules or recommended practices. But we would love to have you join one of these things if you'd like to stay connected with the community and either continue working independently in a proofing room or work collaboratively, which I think would be greatly beneficial in a test kitchen. Dwayne, did I miss anything?
No. Other than that, this is a work in progress. We're just starting these out and always looking for feedback as we do it, whether this is something that works or something that can be tweaked.
And it's going to be a great success.
It'll be a great success. Okay.
All right.
Okay, Dwayne, I think it's your turn to introduce like broad semantic language.
Okay. All right. Let me share my screen. Okay, so I want to talk just in general. So now that the main thing we're going to be talking about now is accessibility. So what I suggest, if you in an editor like here, somehow you can get to the documentation, and I'll kind of frame what I'm doing at the beginning with what we have written up in the documentation. So if you go to the documentation, we have so far we've been focusing on the reference, like where you can reference different components. I want to first talk about the concept. So concept is sort of like the broad level. Here's why we do things. And I want to just put in a plug-in for this accessibility uh, concept document. I'm not gonna, I mean, I basically want to give you a little bit about our philosophy. So we've used this term we mentioned a bunch of times how Doenet is semantic. And by that we mean, right, when you write something, you put in the word point. When you want to make it open, you put in open, things like that, I guess for an endpoint. And the advantage of of semantics is that helps us to create documents that are more accessible. Because we can communicate to, let's say screen readers and other things, more information about what is there, the more information you give us about sort of what the meaning of things are. Now, this is a work in progress. We are definitely thinking about how we best use the information you put in. We've talked a little bit about the accessibility checker, like you get the green guy, so there's we try to give you feedback, is it accessible or not? But of course, there's that's just a floor that actually doesn't, even if you get the green guy in the upper right hand corner, it doesn't mean it's actually accessible. You actually have to write, descriptions that are actually useful and things like that. So you can read a little bit more about this document, again, about the semantics, and we'll basically working through different pieces of these documents over the next hour. The concept documents are these sort of high-level philosophy kinds of things. We now have these guides, which are more practical. And I'm actually going to go to this writing accessible activities guide, which I could have gotten by going under guides. And this contains a lot more of the actual, like, how do you do things? We're not going to necessarily be referring to this document because I have other documents I'm going to be using, but most of the stuff that we're talking about here tells you about how to, later we're going to talk about how to describe images and graphs and how to label inputs and things like this. This basically gives you just a step-by-step. Here's quickly how you can do some of these things. I wanted to talk about just a couple of just high-level stuff before we get into more details about Doenet specific things. In particular, if you want to make your document accessible to screen readers, it helps a lot if you actually organize the structure in a way with like headings, like section and subsections and things like that, because that allows the screen readers to like find the headings. And if you have a heading one, like this is a bigger heading than this, a screen reader user can then, do the equivalent of scanning the document, or we can scan it by looking at different, different headings and things like that. Well, a screen reader, if it's just going to read it all in a row, that's not very useful. But if things are marked up, so you can determine the headings, then a screen reader can say, okay, this is the structure of my document. So it's useful to structure your document in a logical way. We haven't really talked about tables, but if you look up how to do a table, actually called tabular right now in Doenet, it's important if you have a table like this where you have like some items and you have headings, it's important to semantically say this is the header. Because you're not, rather than like getting rid of the header and making these things like alerts or somehow making them bold, the fact that you have a header actually allows the screen reader, when the screen reader is here on this cell, it can know, okay, this is a function for this row. Like the screen reader is all it'll help the screen reader user to parse the table if you make sure you have a header row on your table. And then another, I think it's somewhere in here. Again, this isn't specific to Doenet ML, but when you make a reference, so this is like a link to another page, you want to avoid things like click here or this document is here. If you just put the word here in there when the screen reader is on the reference, it's just going to say this link is about here, and that's not going to tell it very much. So it's better to, in the actual link itself, have something. So here it says taking the derivatives of polynomials. So when the screen reader is on this link, it can know, okay, this is the information that I'm going to get to if I click on it. So that's just a basic overview of accessibility. What I want to turn to next, unless there are any questions about that sort of high level stuff. Then I want to turn to something called style definitions and coloring. We've already talked about style numbers in that. I'm going to actually back up to the concepts and put a plug-in for this document here called style, meaning, and accessibility. We don't allow you to say, here's a point and it's red. What we force you to do is say, this point is with style number 3 or style number 4. And the reason is style numbers force you to tell you, okay, this style, basically a style is a statement about meaning. That style number 1 is something that you should be able to tell apart from style number 2. The reason we have styles is maybe I have 2 points on a graph or 2 curves on a graph, and I need to know what the difference between these 2 sets of points are. And so by making it a style, you're telling that, okay, these are things that are important to have important for you to be able to tell apart. Eventually, we don't have this yet, but our long-term goal is that then users can modify the definition of a style themselves, not the author, but the student or the reader. And they could actually override your color choice to make it a color that they can better tell apart, things like that. So again, the style numbers is a way of trying to convey some kind of meaning. These are the important things that you need to tell apart. You can click more about styling components, how to do that. I'm going to actually go I'm going to go back to a document. I'm actually going to go to create a new document here. I'll just go to maybe the Scratchpad. And I want to talk a little bit about style numbers and one thing that you can do about style numbers. So if you'll remember, if I want to put a graph, I'm going to put a graph in a graph. I don't want to do that. I want to put in let's say a pentagon. I can change let me make the area a little bigger. I can change the color by saying I want style number equals 4, 5, or something like that. Style number equals 4. So we give you 5 different or 6 different predefined styles. But we also allow you to redefine the styles. So this again is a work in progress. We're going to actually eventually have like multiple palettes that you could choose from. But we don't have that feature yet. So later we'll have a few predefined styles. But for now, you can make your own styles by going here and typing style definition. And again, you can click on this and you can find more about the different options for style definitions that I linked to that document that gives you more practical advice. But I can say, all right, for style number equals, I guess I'm using equals 4 right now. So it says, okay, I'm going to make this bigger. So right now the color is purple, but I could change the color. I could say I want the line color to be something else. I want to make the line color equal green. And now I have my style number 4. Why is this thing in the way? Go away. There we go. Now this style becomes green. I could make it light green. I can make it very light. Is there anything really lighter? What does green look like? I'm gonna go back to green. Green. I can make it I can do this kind of thing. It's RGB. So let's say I have 0 red, a bunch of green, and no blue. I can also do it like that. I say I want a lighter color. I can put in AA. I'm gonna make it even lighter. DD. Go all the way up to FF. And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make it even lighter. I'm gonna make this thing like, okay, I want it even lighter. Of course, whatever. Or assuming you know how to do these things. But eventually, I made it to be a very light green here. Can you even see the green? And I don't know if you noticed, but as I got lighter, eventually at some point we started getting these. Got an accessibility violation. And if I go under here, it says style definition 4 has insufficient contrast for line color. It's supposed to be at least a contrast of 3 to 1 for a graphical object, according to the AA accessibility criteria. So again, Doenet will catch it if you make things too too low contrast. And so I could make it better by I'll put these back to 0, 0, and then it's now I don't have an accessibility violation anymore. So you can change the color, marker color. You can change. Let me put a point on here. Point style number equals 5. Root 2. But it's still black. Oh, I can do style number 4. And style number 4. It's still purple, but I could change the marker color by doing marker color equals whatever, anything. Orange. Now I get marker color equals orange. I can also change the marker style. And I can't remember what those are. So I'm gonna, okay, I can make it a circle, cross, a triangle. I'll make it a diamond. It's raise a diamond. Okay, we'll make it a triangle left. And now I can change it to a triangle left, things like that. You can change the line thickness, line width, line width. Equals 6. So we talked about that before. You can change it in the style definition. And then you can override certain things in the graph itself or in the function itself. I can override the line width equals 2, but I cannot override the line color. There's no line color. Because the line color, we're saying, okay, that's something that has to be defined by a style, a semantic difference. So you're not allowed to change the color directly on the component, but you can change other things like the line width and marker style, things like that. Let's see, anything else I want to say? Oh yeah, this is interesting. If I give this point a name equals A, and I could say to it, find the orange, orange triangle or whatever, triangle. That's great. But then if I change or someone actually, the later, someone could even override this, like the student, we don't have that ability yet. If I change this, of course, to red, this doesn't stay up to date. And so what we have instead is you can do this. You can say, find the A dot style definition, style description, excuse me. If I do that, now it says, find the red point. And as I change this to, even if I put in something like, I don't know, I'll just put random numbers in here. Now it says find I guess that's some kind of green. It guesses the color green. Find the green point. Or I could even do this, find the style definition with noun. Now it says find the green triangle. And if I were to change this to a cross, it would say find the green cross. So you can do these descriptions like that so that even as the styles change, your wording will stay up to date. You could also say, I don't like this color green. I think it's more of a, I don't know, what's a word for that? I don't know color. Anyone have a better color vocabulary than me?
You should call it olive
Olive,
or
okay.
it's kind of gray.
So I'll say marker. I can say marker color word equals olive if I wanted to. And then it says find the olive square. So you can override that, override the default. If you don't like what color we thought this was, you can rename the color. Okay, I think any questions on that? That's the basic idea of how you style components in Doenet. So Virginia, do you have a task for us?
Yes. So the next task is we made some static points that were mapped around the circle. So the challenge is to create a custom style definition that has something that, if you use 5, like I did for the points, they're kind of big, and it's the same as the drag point in size, so it hides the drag point as well. So first thing to do is create a custom style definition that makes the marker smaller, and then maybe change color. If you're going to change a color, try using like a hex code for the color and giving it a word so that the description works. And then just another one last tweak. It took me years to figure out that there are layers on graphs, and that actually helps a lot. So just to throw in a little bonus factoid here, that you can also put the drag point on a layer above those static points, and that way it's just, you can grab it easier. And to do that, you just do layer equals to inside the point itself. So that task is in the chat and we'll take 5 minutes for it.
Am I supposed to be the time? I'm not sure who's supposed to be the timekeeper.
I started watching it. We're got like 30 seconds left.
Okay.
Would anyone like to share their screen and show how they did this task?
I don't know if you guys were talking to me, but I forgot I had my audio coming through headphones, not the speakers.
No, well, it was sort of group. I think I'll just go ahead and share my screen and show you how I did it. And let me know if anything I do doesn't make sense, but we have our circle graph with our points. And so the thing that we're changing is the style number of the points that are generated by this repeat for sequence. So currently they're style number 5, but I want to do two things. I want to like sort of push them to the back, and I want them to be smaller. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define a style number. And I like to make it something different number than the automatic. So I'll add a style definition and give it a number that's outside the range of normal. So I'll do 8. We could also, if we just wanted to make them smaller, we could have gone marker size within the point and changed it. But I also want to change the color and just kind of practice with the marker, the marker color word. So instead, I'm going to make my own definition because I can't change the color directly on the point. So I'm going to change the marker color to, and here I'm just going to go to my little hex code picker thingy and grab this like wine color. And then I'm going to paste that in here, and you do need to give it the hash. So I add that there. And then I want the size. Marker size equals, and 2 seems like a tinier version, so we'll do that. And then I have to go over here and I have to change this to the new number that I just defined. So this becomes 8. So we'll go ahead and update that. See my tiny little wine-colored points. And now it's still kind of hard to click this point, this drag point. So the secret layer property is really handy here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to push instead. So everything's basically at layer 1 to start with, right, Dwayne? Or is it layer 0?
Layer 1.
Layer 1. So I'm going to go ahead and push the drag point further. So I'm just give it
It
layer.
says default 0 there, actually. I'm looking at the bottom of your screen. Maybe it's.
A what?
It says default 0. Maybe I'm wrong because you notice how it says default 0?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Anyway,
Oh,
whatever.
let's try 1 and see if the behavior gets affected. Oh, that is so weird. That doesn't correspond to any other way that indexing works in Doenet, but I
Okay.
guess everything's on layer 0. So if
I
you
guess
give it a
so.
layer of 1, you're pushing it forward. So that it makes it more functional here. And then I wanted to show, again, this is really handy when you're referencing things to be descriptive, especially when you're making like alternate text for a graph. You want to make sure you're differentiating between the different points, for example. So I'm going to go ahead and just render out and I'll just pick one of my points. What happens when I try and describe one of these little tiny points? So this just says red point. So if to me, that's not very descriptive. I like it's kind of like a wine color. So I want this word to change. So instead of I'm going to add marker color word. And or maybe dark red. And then I wanted to say, like, it's really tiny. So I'm going to say the small dark red point, and hopefully that comes out looking nice. There you go. So you can tweak if it's, if the hex code value is what you're using. I mean, if the HTML color value is what you're using, then it's going to be accurate probably. But those are handy things to know just to clarify and differentiate. Any questions on that?
That's funny how you put small in terms of a color, but okay.
Oh no. So what I should do is actually do the marker.
Is there do we have something else for that? Oh, we have a,
Oh yeah, marker style word, right?
oh, okay.
What would you use?
I
Is
don't
there a
know.
size word?
I don't know how to, I don't think it's the thing we haven't thought of. Because if you do marker style world, it'll be dark red, small point, which I guess you could do.
Yeah. Small. Yeah, usually it's the style is sort of like the shape, but size is kind of part of shape, So yeah.
Right, so it's just small space point or
Okay.
yeah, well,
There we go.
man, it's sort of it's dark red small point, but not exactly how you said it. I don't know.
All
Or
right.
put the word small in text in front of it. Is probably what I would do.
All right.
Work in progress.
Yes. Okay, what do we have next? I think it might be graphing and accessibility, or is it inputs?
It's short descriptions for inputs and answers, looks like.
Great. Okay, so this is something that
Could
you
we
guys
just get a pulse on how people are doing? Because I haven't heard from anyone in a while. Just want to make sure this doesn't get too heavy. Because it is heavy for me, and I've been dealing with it more and more. It certainly is a heavier topic to digest relative to the other three things, the other 3 days that we've had. So, any thoughts before we continue, or any places where we need to reinforce things, or slow down, or speed up?
Kind of mimicking what Virginia was doing. I find that the colors of my points aren't changing.
Okay, can you want to share your screen?
Yeah, so maybe I could do this. Make it even larger than that. Let's do like 10. Make it ridiculous. Okay. So these are my fixed points. And they're squares. It's doing everything here that I want it to do, except I'm using this color, which is kind of a maroon.
So the problem here is that fill color, there's so many different proper or attributes that go along with style definition. So you just have the wrong attribute. Fill color represents I have a big square and I'm going to like shade the interior of the polygon. So marker color. Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
Good question.
All right, so fill color and marker color are two different things.
You guys ready to learn?
So, I'm sorry. So how I understand it then is the style definitions are the essential component of the accessibility for, in this case, interactive graphs, but it would be for all graphs, correct? Okay, thank you.
So it's really, you can make a very accessible graph and ignore style numbers completely. So they become important when you have things that need to be differentiated. That's the intent of the graph. And so once that becomes the intent of the graph, we try and make it easy using style numbers to just say, well, this one's going to be 1 and this one's going to be 2. I don't even have to specify 1 because it's default. And it's supposed to be that the further up you get, like there's the greatest differentiation between 1 and 2. And then it kind of like recedes from there. But if you only have 2 functions and you want to tell them apart, make them 1 and 2. It's if you're doing something kind of funky and you want a little bit more control, this is, you never have to make a style definition if you're happy with the existing 1 through 6. And care has been put into making sure that those are able to be differentiated and that they're accessible. So,
Okay.
Good question.
So it's not necessarily essential to use the style definition. You can use the default.
Right.
Okay. But it's still an important skill to know. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, so you actually will probably run into the Doenet editor getting angry at you, making your little man purple up at the top, more frequently using, any type of input in your document or answer tag. So I just want to briefly talk about it. I know we've kind of as we talked about answers and math inputs and other types of inputs, we've mentioned it, but just to kind of, this is the most important thing in terms of how you make the green man happy, and so it's easy to lose track of it. Also, if you ever look at any previously created content, the new way that we're recommending you label your answers and your inputs is different than most of us have done it in the past. So you might have to modify, if you're using existing content, you might run into the situation where you need to modify it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just kind of review kind of what we've been talking about in the past about inputs. And just go down here. Actually, I'll go to the top. Okay, so a lot of what you will see if you go to doenet.org or even a lot of content on beta still is you'll have a question and then the next line is looking for an answer. And so you have some LaTeX, maybe a little label off to the side, and then that's closed. You always have to close your display math tags before you put any input tags in. So I want to add a math input here. And this is everywhere on Doenet, but this will be unhappy. Well, it's actually unhappy for various reasons here. So I'm just going to comment out the bottom. Okay, so our guy, it says it must have a short description or a intention for my label because I want the user to see X equals